The second half of today's session is going to be led by my colleague Jill. Jill works on the marketing side of the Goodwill setup here. Yeah, I'll hand over to Jill to talk to you.
Wonderful. Hello everyone. Again, my name is Jill Garden. I am the marketing manager for here at Goodwill. In another life, I am also a presenter, a speaker, and a trainer on subjects such as inclusion, diversity, as well as generations in the workplace. So that is what I'm going to cover with you today as an introduction into a program that is centered around working in environments and learning new skills and re-entering the workforce. So what I'm going to do is these are just some printouts of the slides that you're going to see on the screen up here. So if you could each just take one and pass it around. And then I'm also going to send some pens around, so you're welcome to take notes and keep that as well. And yes, there's a little red tip at the bottom that you need to clip off so that the ink will start flowing for you. Just to let you know, they're not trick pens, they really work. You gotta work with them a little bit. So that is a little bit about myself. One of the other reasons that I think I was requested to come in today is I have done this presentation at Job Club before, and some of the folks here who now work in the program have been to this presentation and thought that they enjoyed it so much that it may be beneficial and you would enjoy it as well. So this is the first session, so the topic of re-entering the workforce and all the new things to expect. What I would like to do to begin with is to discuss what it is. I would like each person to go around the room to please introduce themselves and to share why it is that you have decided to join this program and what your ultimate goal is. Other than just, I want a job. I think we can
I'll just jump in at that point. We did have that at the start, Jill, but okay. I think for Jill's benefit, if we could, to recap, because obviously she would like your input too, so we'll start off with David.
Well, you know what, being that you guys did that, we can adjust it. Why don't you tell me what your biggest fear, challenge, or obstacle to overcome re-entering the workplace is? And think about what it is that, maybe you have to work at the most to overcome. What is your fear? What is your worries about doing something new? So we'll change that up a little bit.
Should we start in reverse order with Connie and then work down the table?
Work down this way. Miss Connie, would you like to lead us off?
I sure would.
Lovely.
My biggest fear is, without telling a whole lot of my business, I need a job that's going to pay, like I noticed on the film thing we just seen, they paid like it's starting out with $10 or $12. I was like, wow. If I could find a job that pays, that's going to be beneficial to me as far as my benefits, without me having to lose my benefits and things, because what this program is great. I don't have to, share with, with my other things what I make. But if I was to go off of the program, I would have to be able to, make it on just what I'm, and being able to have insurance and all that stuff. So my biggest fear is finding a position that's gonna pay me where I feel like I can still stabilize my life,
So your biggest fear is the change and stability and
right.
the possible loss of stability by going through all this new effort just to get you to a point that might be more uncertain.
Right.
So uncertainty of the future, fear of the unknown.
Yes.
Okay, wonderful. Which direction would we like to come in? We'll just zigzag across the table. How's that?
Okay, so then Darlene.
My biggest fear is how much more am I going to learn?
Oh.
Or how much more can you learn? Am I capable of learning?
Well, no, I'm capable of learning.
So what was the fear?
The fear is like, I think the computer.
So the fear is learning the computer and technology. Okay. And if we can.
And then that would be Ruth next.
Hi, Ruth.
My fear is learning the computer again. I used to work with the computer, and now I've forgotten a lot of it, and I'd like to get back into it.
Okay. And Judy.
I think my fear is working with younger people, because the generations, there's so much difference between us.
Yep.
Particularly in
And
technology.
Technology, absolutely. Yeah, and that's what my fear is.
Absolutely, you're not alone in that.
Yeah.
Okay. Next would be Gwen.
Well, if I had a fear, which I try really hard not to,
We all try, don't we?
it would probably be not being able to accomplish what I need to accomplish in order to fulfill my ultimate goal.
So you have your own set of goals and standards that you are going to adhere to, and your concern, maybe not fear, is that, you know, with these steps in place, you still may not be able to achieve that ultimate goal.
Yeah.
Okay,
Possible.
very much so.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Gwen. The next in line would be Angie.
Hi.
Hi.
My fear is Gwen's fear, that I
Okay.
would not be able to live up to the expectations of my employer.
Okay.
You know, so, my challenge is I can learn anything, very smart and organized me, I know how to communicate, is me standing in my way.
I think we are all our own biggest obstacle, aren't we?
Yeah, that's how do I
Is that a fair
overcome
statement?
this way of thinking, you know, oh my God, they're gonna hate me because of my laugh, you know?
Yes. Well, and again, those fears of going into an unknown. It's very nerve-wracking. It's a lot to overcome. Very much so. If I need to go-
And sorry, Joe, it'd be Kerry next.
Hello, Kerry.
What concerns you? What? You're that carefree.
Your pathway is gilded in gold. Look at how carried. All right. Good. If we may come back across.
Sure, this will be Alvin.
Well, as I stated before, when all my relations, my brothers and sisters, they retired, and I guess they got complacent and their lifespan start to diminish, and their health diminished, and I don't want to go through that cycle. I'd rather try to keep busy and stay focused, and maybe I can be able to live a little longer than they did.
You don't use it, you lose it.
Pretty much,
We're going to put that on the
Yeah.
on the back burner.
Yeah.
Awesome. I love that. Great motivation. Fantastic.
Okay, and this would be Cleveland.
Hello, Cleveland.
Okay, my fears is trying to stay healthy enough to perform my job duties and conquering the computer skills.
Okay, so I hear computer skills then.
Yeah.
I would say of not just the future, but the computer skills are kind of an area for everybody, I think,
Yes.
in some level, shape, or form. Okay, and
Finally, David.
and hello, David.
Oh, I can tell you my fears if you want to.
We have plenty of time for your fears, David.
Have you got a couple of days?
Exactly. I'll set up a meeting time for you.
Good stuff.
No, my biggest fear is just being able to do the, you know, the work because of my disabilities and that, being able to, you know,
Okay.
I mean, I try to do the best I can, and, you know, sometimes the old body just doesn't want to do it. And the next thing is like modern technology. I think everybody's afraid of it, you know?
Okay.
But once you learn it, it just comes back to you. It's like riding a bike.
It really is. Once you learn it, then you can keep it going. So with that, so we all have challenges with our physical bodies, and being that we are at Goodwill, that is actually what we do, is we help individuals overcome physical and disadvantaging barriers. So with that, that is our goal at Goodwill, is to always identify a situation with what we can accomplish as opposed to what our obstacles are. So with that, sometimes redefining success, think about that, redefining success. If you no longer have the physical capabilities that you once did, is it fair to put those expectations on yourself when you have changed? You have so much more to offer than what you did at one point in your life. So consider that just some fuel for thought on identifying how you can re-evaluate your situation and what can become success. Take some of these fears, some of these obstacles, and start thinking about seeing yourself on the other side of them. And then what are those steps in the middle to get to that point? I am not that great at computers. Have I broke computers? Yes. Does it happen often? No. The ones at work, there's always someone here to fix it. When the blue smoke comes out of the one at home, it's time to get a new one. Okay? It's going to happen. And there are people out there to help you fix it. If my face is turning red, it's because I'm embarrassed by those situations. It's going to happen. It just is. My definition of a success in life is if I did better today by trying my hardest today than I did yesterday, today's a success. And I think if each person can kind of look at that, it removes a lot of the pressure of the fear of the future and the fear of the unknown. So with that, what I'm going to go into is a little bit more particular subject, which is generations in the workplace. I had one individual talk about working with younger people. Who here would enjoy working with their grandchildren? Oh, imagine that, not one,
I
maybe one. Now to Dar and her granddaughter are about close like this. They're two peas in a pod. However, how many other hands in this room did you see go up?
Don't have any.
Well, what about with your neighbors or your great nieces and nephews?
Well,
Yeah,
that
that might be.
Okay, okay, little further reserve. What about their children?
Oh, no, my little 7-year-old nephew said, when I was on the computer, highlight it, click copy, go up here, dump it in, enter, and you're there. That's exactly what he said to me. I went, what? He goes, get out of the way, let me show you.
Yes.
I'm not kidding you, that fast,
Yeah.
and this was last year, that fast.
Well, that's what
They
they do in
highlight
school
it,
now.
right click it,
they
go
do.
up here,
Yeah.
dump it in there, enter, see, there it is. That's how
And
you
what
have
did
it.
you
When
do?
we was going to school, we didn't know.
You just communicated amongst different generations.
Yeah.
It's a very different experience communicating with individuals in different generations, is it
My
not?
son narrows it down, he goes, Mom, it's not a phone problem, it's not a computer problem.
Well, not just
It's a
computers.
mom problem.
There's no problem.
Relax.
Your son is incorrect, I'm
This is
afraid.
all you have to do.
There-
Well, I showed him how to use that
If you could,
spoon.
please. With that, what it is that there are many individuals, and we all are right, and we are all wrong. Okay? So with that, that's why I say that is not a mom problem. It's not a son problem. It's a communication issue. It has nothing to do with anything other than understanding more about the people that you will be side by side with. I happen to have a 20-year-old son. He's not even in the millennials anymore. He's in the generation after that. Talk about technology. He is a 4-year employee of Best Buy. Computers, home theater, and cell phones. Okay, there is my challenge to maintain communication and understanding with a 20-year-old who is so indulged in technology. And therein lies, I think, the focus of today's conversation. Figuring out how to communicate with people about that technology so that we can learn and feel comfortable together. With that, if we can move on to the first slide. Just the arrow will take
There you
it.
go, yep.
Okay, so what are generations? The generational numbers, as far as the years born, fluctuate. Reason being is a lot more things take into account. Not only when you were born, but what were the experiences of your lifetime? What was the approach of your parents? If you had very young parents compared to very old parents, you might have had a different approach to life. So with that, I'm guessing most individuals, because this is a program specific to age, is there anyone that does not fall into the boomers category in the group? Okay, and you would fall into, you were then born before 1946?
Yes.
I give it up, and I apologize, because I wanted to put that on there. The generation of those born before 1946 is called the silent generation. My grandmother, who just passed not too long ago at 99, was part of that generation, and I understand why. There was a lot of intense thought and observation and allowing others to be themselves and not imposing your ideas onto others, but rather listening. A laissez-faire, a hands-off. May I say that that might better describe your peers of individuals, that they don't kind of get into everyone's business the way people do nowadays?
Yes.
Thank you. I apologize that I put that up there, and no disrespect to you, but I was thinking at this point, do we have 80-plus-year-olds coming back into the workforce? And that is an absolute yes, and I will add that back in after this slide, after this presentation, so thank you. So then a majority, the rest will fall into the boomers category. Then you have Gen X, that's where David and I fall. After that, you're millennials. And beyond that, you're Gen Z, like my son, who is off and running into a whole new world. If we could.
Sure.
So, how do different generations affect the workplace? These are some of the thoughts I had. Does anyone disagree with any of those things, that those could become challenges in the workplace? How you communicate, how you process information? Who here can write in cursive? Now, if I ask that Gen Z, meaning the 20-year-olds and younger, how many can write in cursive, what's going to happen?
What's that?
What's that?
Exactly. It never got taught. So
Right.
all of a sudden, something that is norm to you doesn't even exist anymore. What about a phone book? Do you think a 10-year-old's going to know what a phone book is?
No, they're gonna look in their contacts, or they're gonna ask people.
They're going to have a completely different way to process that information. They've been taught something very different. And times change fast these days, and we're all left trying to keep up. What about your expectations or your values? Are you going to have different values than an individual who may have been born in a different generation?
Of course.
Exactly. And what about your productivity? Are there different definitions of productivity?
That's
Productivity
where
equals
re-entering the workforce, re-entering, you learn something new.
Exactly.
That's that productivity.
And that's also your technology.
Well, which is a part of it.
Exactly, exactly. So they kind of go hand in hand.
Mhm.
I have a video. There's a something out there. It's called TED Talks. Okay? And what it is it's a more of a science and learning type program. And will you go ahead and pull that
Yeah,
up?
sure.
Lovely. And so with that, they talk about
If you
more
write
science
anything on your
technology.
computer,
Excuse me, Jill. Just bear with me.
Oh, sure. And in doing so, the main focus of the one we're going to look at today is how the different generations communicate together in the workplace. And when you are at your desk, and the person at the desk next to you is a Gen Xer, and the person across the hall from you is a millennial, what is it that you can do in the workplace to promote better communication amongst everyone?
Just going there. Just bear with me here, Jill. Just having a hitch. There we go. Oh, how do I get rid of the PowerPoint on that? It's not coming up on the screen, which is kind of weird.
Maybe hit play and see what it does.
you need to get Grammarly.
I write pretty much all day, every day, and Grammarly makes my writing better.
As a student, I like that it's free. It actually is correcting everything as I'm writing it.
Grammar
there we
errors,
go.
spelling errors, and even helps me find the right words to
Sorry about that,
use.
Jill. A bit of a wobble.
All right, you may want to take notes about the different generations.
When work sucks, it affects the rest of our life. 57% of our waking time is spent at work. Gallup tells us that 70% of us are disengaged from work. That's a whole lot of people whose lives have a large suckage component. I study why work sucks and what we can do about it. Specifically, I study generational communication and the new rules of engaging each generation at work. I study cohorts, not individuals at work. Bad communication is one of the reasons work sucks. In my research, I have found that if you improve communication between the generations at work, work sucks less because you've reduced the stress between the generations. Never before have we had grandparents working on the same team as children that are their grandchildren's age. Never before have we had tools at work that allow us to mess up communication as much as email, text, and social media. Because of technology, we have lost our ability to communicate generationally. We no longer see a face or hear a voice or feel the tension in the room. We sit at our screens and we type. Do you remember the world before ISIS? Do you remember Scuds on CNN? Do you remember your first Facebook post? Or maybe your first SMS? Or maybe you remember where you were when you heard JFK was killed. These questions prove key in my research. In my data, we found that great communicators understand that each generation responds differently to leadership and workplace technology. They know they're different, their leaders and followers are different, and they're motivated differently, and that their job is to shift to meet the needs of each generation to manage up and manage down. I'm going to teach you the new rules of engagement, but before I do, let's review the generations, understanding that each academic institution has their own views on birth years. Boomers, born before 1960. We call them builders. Gen X, 1960, 1980. They're the doers. Millennials, 1980 to 2000, the adapters. And Gen Z, 2000 on, they're just brilliant. My friend Donna is a boomer. Her driver is legacy creation. Boomers are builders, and they are still tinkering. Donna's driver is legacy creation because as a child, she was deeply affected by the Cuban Missile Crisis as well as the threat of the bomb. She remembers hiding underneath her desk, and she can very clearly tell you where she was when she heard JFK was shot. Boomers are the architects of today's millennial. They've built the corporations, the bureaucracies, our volunteer structures. Boomers have been working their entire lives and have absolutely no intention of quitting. Ask Donna, she'll tell you, what would I do? Boomers process information from leaders and coworkers in an auditory capacity, meaning boomers are conversation clever. They think in terms of words. Boomers love word-based entertainment. Think about all their old James Bond movies, how the clever conversation played a role. Think about James in that famous line, "Does the collar match the cuffs?" You have to be listening pretty carefully to know what James meant exactly by that. We know from the VAC system that when people process information in an auditory capacity, they move their eyes to the right when they're remembering or to the left when they're constructing a solution. And why auditory for boomers? Because when they were coming of age, language ruled. In high school, they were taught Latin, debate, humanities. As they were coming of age, the world was auditory. There was newspapers, radio ruled, and debates were based on fact, logic. I know I'm frustrating Donna when she says to me, "Can you get off that thing?" She's talking about my phone. "Pick up your head, I need to talk to you, listen to me." I know she's getting stressed because I'm not allowing her to share her legacy with me. When boomers like Donna get into distress, do 3 things. Number 1, acknowledge their legacy. Boomers have and will continue to be great friends, co-workers, and parents. Number 2, use auditory sentence patterning. So I hear what you're saying is, so what I'm hearing is. And number 3, allow them to talk things out. Allow them to write long, detailed emails. Talking is a boomer soother. That's how they built their legacy. How they love it. They love it so much they came up with that rule, don't go to bed mad, stay up all night, talk it out, but don't go to bed. This is not the best way to deal with a situation if you are dealing with a Gen Xer who are too damn tired from working to stay up all night and talk. Gen Xers like my friend Trish and I are doers. Our drivers are money, work, and the fear of losing it. We're independent, we're entrepreneurial, but we're all suffering from the Prince Charles syndrome. We're waiting for somebody older to leave so we can finally take charge and make some changes. Gen X is the TV generation. We grew up with it. We love it. TV dinners, TV tables, and university TV dates. And it all began with Disney. Oh yeah, most of us can remember sitting there with our parents, eating our dinner, watching Disney, Saturday morning cartoons with Tang. We process information visually. When we're thinking or remembering, our eyes go up and to the right. And when we're constructing a solution, our eyes go to the left. Where boomers love language, we love pictures. And now we begin to see where the stress is starting to occur. We're not conversation clever. When we went to high school, there was no money for language, for humanities, for debate. When we graduated from university, we graduated into recession, not to jobs. We graduated into mass layoffs. We graduated with student debt at an interest rate of 12%. Last hired, first fired, last invited into management. There is always this theme, do more with less, and it's never more evident than in our entertainment. Think about Bruce Willis in any Die Hard movie. He may not have had the witty repartee of James Bond, but he saved the world 1,000 times doing more with less without any gadgets or even Mr. Bond's cue. Gen X are truly engaged when they have one of their inevitable notebooks. They love their notebooks. They love technology, except for that very, very, very brief Shift F7, lose your data. We love pictures and technology so much we created PowerPoint. Sorry. Give a Gen Xer a deck or a whiteboard and some markers, and that's their soother. They can make sense of the world with pictures. You know a Gen X is going into distress when you see the inevitable Gen X slump. Their eyes go to the right. Most likely they're thinking about LinkedIn, who's going to hire them. Or to the left. They're constructing their exit strategy. Then they sit in a meeting and they don't get mad. They just wait. And finally they'll take everything on. They'll do it. Times may be tight and times everybody's frustrated, but they'll get it done. They're the toughest. If you want to re-engage a Gen X, do two things. Engage in visual sentence patterning. I'm not clear on what you're saying. Can you provide more detail? And number two, because you know their fear is losing work, stress, money, ask them to identify this fear. Ask them to give you a deck. They'll love it. Gen X are great at providing information on their own and giving it to you. We don't understand when people can't think for themselves. Millennials frustrate the hell out of us. Millennials are the great adapt, adopt, and improve generation, and they're having a heck of a time living in a boomer-centric world. My friend Sam is one of my very favorite millennials. His driver is development. His whole entire life has been a series of developmental activities with imposed structure. Sam is also one of the most loved generation. Sam's parents loved, some say coddled him. Sam's parents loved him so much, they had a bumper sticker put on the back of their car that said, "Precious baby on board." Unlike Gen X, who was tossed outside, told to come in if the streetlights come on, Sam was the first generation to have play dates instead of play time. Unlike Gen X, where competition ruled at school, at Sam's time, teaching changed to a focus on self-esteem. Sam's parents set his schedule, organized his world. Sam can clearly remember a chart on the fridge that was color-coded, talking about who was where and when. Sam's parents both worked. Jobs were posted on the fridge. Cooking instructions were posted on the fridge. No surprise then that he does really well with detail and structure, but not in a traditional environment. Sam's parents were his rock as he was growing up, and he would have it no other way. His childhood was fairly peaceful, prosperous, but it was when he was coming of age that the world started falling apart. Think about 2008. Presidents lied, prime ministers lied, bankers lied, college and university presidents lied. No one went to jail. That's why they don't trust. Why would you when you know what's going to happen? They trust their friends, they trust their coworkers, they trust their parents. And look at what they've created. Glassdoor, Rate My Professor, Yelp. They share everything. They're fully transparent. Sam's been online since the 5th grade. He grew up in the internet and with and on Facebook. He shares everything. He's fearless. He loves technology. He and his friends have done some amazing things with it. And, you know, his rebels he loves. Ferris Bueller, Steve Jobs, Elon Musk. This love of just rebels fuels his desire for actions. He doesn't think in terms of words or pictures. He thinks in terms of actions. After all, the internet is action-based. He processes information from leaders and coworkers at work in terms of actions, kinesthetically, meaning his head goes down and to the right when he's remembering, or down and to the left when he's constructing a solution. When Sam is choosing his entertainment, he creates it using technology because he loves to play with technology. And look what he's done. YouTube, sexting, thank you for that, by the way. Look at how he's recreated and adopted Uber, Uber, and Airbnb. Again, thank you. I can always tell when Sam's starting to get stressed out because he gets really fidgety. And he doesn't really want to look me in the eye because he's processing information. And no, he's not reaching for his phone. He's going to the right or going to the left. Okay, and then he reaches for his phone. When Sam starts to go into distress, there's 3 things you do. First, ask his opinion. His parents always did. He was considered an equal. Number 2, provide the proverbial chart on the fridge. Give him structure, give him detail, and get him to question why. Their thirst for knowledge is amazing. And then number 3, don't ask him to work in a traditional 9-to-5 environment. Tell him what you want, get him to adopt it, and my God, he'll improve it. It's within his DNA to do that. But it's within the DNA of his younger brothers and sisters, Gen Z, to change the entire world. Gen Z, like my baby daughter, fear being alone. They're the first generation to grow up in technology. They're also the first generation to grow up with mass murder of neighbors by neighbors, as well as the threat of global terrorism. Like the boomers before them, who hid under their desk, this generation has never gone into school without knowing how to go into lockdown. They travel in packs. They're never without their phones. Long conversations stress them. They have 3-minute YouTube, Instagram, Snapchat. When they're stressed, they need their phone. They reach for their phone to connect to other people. Because when they were little and they cried, they were given a phone, an iPad, or a computer. Technology is their soother. So I've probably overwhelmed you. No worries. There's an easy way to remember all of this. Next time you're typing, texting, or talking with somebody at work, take a step back and say, I'm different. I'm a builder, a doer, an adapter. Take a step forward and say they're different.